Hello, listener. This is Marty V, and I have some exciting news. Romance Writers Therapy is now sponsored by Plotter.com. That is Plottr.com. And as you remember from our conversation with Troy Lambert, Plotter is a storyboarding software that makes moving your plot around and double checking how the flow is and the structure of your story in a really pretty intuitive way. So if you haven't checked out Plotter.com, go to Plottr.com.
Hi, welcome to Romance Writers Therapy. This week, we're Marty V and Kate Pryor.
Just like the two of us.
I know, we've had so many guest episodes lately. I'm like, oh man. It's quiet in here.
It is a lot lately of us having pals in the show. I'm excited to talk to you, though. It's been 2 weeks since I've spoken to you, Kate.
I know.
I mean, that is just unnatural.
It is. It's very weird.
I don't appreciate it.
I mean, I don't like traveling either, so.
You're like, it's really not my fault, so.
It's like, don't come at me. So this week, you said you wanted to talk about writing imagery, and I've talked to you a bit about wanting to do an episode about how you distinguish dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Like giving each character an individual voice that is recognizable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like a great distribution of our personal skills, right? Like
I mean
I think you write imagery so lovely, particularly like the physical sensations that happen within someone's body, and like it's like just abstract enough that it's like, oh, that was so fun, but like not so abstract that it was like you were trying fucking hard. You know what I mean? Like, you really do such a great job with that.
I'm gonna be real. I do feel like I land on the trying too fucking hard to be abstract.
I am sorry you feel that way, because I always think that, like, man, that was just pitch perfect.
Aw.
I love you, Kate.
Aw. This is kind of a thing you've kind of pointed at me and been like, okay, this is a talent I think you have, and I'm like, what? So
you didn't.
And
you
like,
don't think
I've
you have that?
talked to you a lot about. I definitely think you do a good job with like the voices.
Okay, what's really funny is I resisted the urge to be like, I don't feel like they're districtly different. But like, I think it's one of those.
I'm not qualified to talk about this.
Exactly. You feel unqualified, so I will speak on it. But it is one of those things that, like, okay, so my hair is kind of dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think anyone's hair who has lighter hair than mine is blonde. Right? Like, just a world of blonde other than anyone whose hair is darker than mine.
That's like a whole thing on TikTok right now, that a bunch of people who considered themselves blonde are not being considered blonde by other people, and now they have to like re-identify as brunette, and they're struggling with it. It's like, it was like a whole thing.
It is, I know. And also like the conversation of like, so why is it so important to you to be blonde? Like, what a part of our societal system makes it so important to you to be blonde? You know, and I think that that's a really important part of the conversation too.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Yeah. But I think anyone's hair who's lighter than like a chestnut brown is blonde, right?
Yeah, no, I got you.
But I think it's just one of those things where like you and I are too like close to it to see like our own, what other people perceive it to be. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. And I think it's also like a kind of the thought that maybe just because you struggle with something doesn't mean you don't end up with a good result. That's
a good point.
Like, you know, because I'm thinking like, no, my imagery, I agonize over it for a while, and then I go, fuck it, it's going like this, it stays.
Okay, but my dialogue, I tend to feel like that is what I write the easiest.
Okay.
So, like, that's what comes the most natural to me. When I notice, like, when I do sprints, and I have like a particularly high like word per minute count, so almost
it's
always dialogue. Yeah, or a lot of emotional angst. A lot of times those parts just come from me, just pour out of my soul. So
I don't struggle with dialogue per se, but it's just the making it sound like these characters aren't the same people, or not even the same people. Like, just I'm not replaying the same character from the last book.
Yeah.
Again.
And
you know?
I think that's my issue with imagery right now, where like all of my metaphors I've used.
I know.
Right?
I did that recently. I was like, oh dang it. I can't use like a orbiting around each other like moon and stars kind of metaphor. And I was like, dang it, that was my one good one.
That was my one good one. Mine is also magnets.
Ooh,
like resisting the pull. That's one that I
can only do that once, never again.
That's it.
You've used your one magnet reference.
You played your card, so
go to writer jail. I see you
straight
doing
through jail
twice. Double dipping.
Okay, so do you want to start the description part of the conversation? I'm sorry, I am removing nail polish from my nails, and I have a hangnail, and she's a burning.
Oh no!
I didn't know what was there. I am well aware now.
My nails earlier this morning. Now I have no nails to do.
Oh no, Kate! I have particularly like saved them. I meant to bring a nail file down, but it didn't work out. So, but okay, do you want to go first?
I can. I don't know what I'll say.
Okay, well, so when you're agonizing over like your descriptions, what sort of questions are you asking yourself?
Oh God, I don't even know. I think I try to cycle through like different senses, though I do feel like a lot of the time when I write imagery, I kind of end up getting stuck on like one particular sense, and then I go back through a passage and I'm like, oh, I'm just talking about how everything smells, and it's a lot.
See, I feel like I talk quite a bit about how things smell too, but it's because like my sense of smell isn't strong.
Okay.
And people talk all the time about how connected to like memories and such smell is. And so it's such a conscious choice for me to be like, have I said anything about smell in this chapter? Right? So like those are moments that like are very deliberate, and so they stand out to me.
You know, in dialogue. This is not me switching to your
Okay, thing. I was like, already?
All right, 30 seconds, your turn. In writing dialogue, I sometimes feel so like something that I feel like I do, and like a lot of, I think especially newer writers do this. It's like a bad habit to fall into, and once you notice it, I feel like you become very self-conscious about it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like that helps you kind of self-edit that out and stop yourself from doing it in the first place. Which is you constantly talk about where everyone's looking with their eyes. Like, his eyes darted to mine. I looked over here. I glanced at him. I fluttered my eyelash. Like just fucking, yes. I looked.
Yes.
Just, if you Control F the word look or eyes, and then suddenly you have like 10,000 out of however long your book is. It's just,
that is just,
like,
that is
God.
Something I will not look up. Like,
I know, it'd be just like instantly
no way
for you to read that number.
Well, because like that is, and I'm allowing myself in this first draft to just be like, just let them look wherever the fuck they want, right? But then when I go back and be like, oh my God, what is like, I'm going to edit so much of this out, right? But like that's kind of my approach with this first draft in general, is just like let them do whatever they want. Just allowing this draft to be like as white room as like as I want it to be. I don't know. I'm having a hard time finding their voice, and a lot of times that's when descriptions are easier for me to decide, because then I know more about like what the character actually sees. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get that.
Because like, okay, so here is like a great example of like the difference between what I see compared to like what Andrew sees, right? So Andrew and I were I was holding open a new build. There's like a function happening at it, and he comes in and like gives me a hug and everything, and then he just starts like staring off into space, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, there's so many fucking lights in this house. And he went on like every single floor of the house, in every single room, and counted every single light. And in this house, there were 100 lights. So he was not wrong. He did have to include like the oven and microwave to get that nice rounded number. But there were a lot of fucking lights in this house, right? I had been in that house, I mean, for like the past 4 weekends in a row. And I did not know any of that, right? I just saw like the design features, how comfortable the rooms felt, you know, stuff like that. I did not take how many lights were in the room did not catch my eye at all, right? But like Andrew and I saw the space differently. And so when I know a character's voice, it's easier for me to decide what they see in a room.
This is one of those things where I'm going to get all the specifics wrong.
Okay.
So, cool. Our listener has like a snowball's chance in hell of like finding the book that I'm talking about.
Okay.
I think they love those challenges so much.
I think they do too. Yeah. This time again, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but here we go.
That's what we're just gonna rename the podcast. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes. About writing.
About anything, honestly.
I know, right? Yeah.
There's this book called something like 10 Ways to Walk Through a City, or like 10 Ways to Walk Down a Street.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And the author went and interviewed, kind of walked down the same street with like 10 different experts in their fields, all in a diverse number of fields. Like one of them was a bird watcher, ornithologist kind of person. And they pointed out all the different bird calls that they were hearing and like seeing, and like sights of nests in the little trees on the sidewalk. And then someone else is like about insects, and somebody else is about urban planning, and like all that kind of thing. So
very cool.
Each person had such a different experience of the things they noticed, and like, yeah, this is just a cool book.
That sounds like
I remember
awesome
nothing
book.
else about it, so I cannot tell you the actual title or the author.
Okay. Which disappoints me right now. So listener.
I know, it sounds like a cool book.
It does.
Listener, if you want to recommend it to me, that's fantastic.
I would love to hear you. Tell me what it is. But yeah, I think that's something I'm struggling with this right now, is I just don't have anyone's voice. And so I don't know what they're seeing.
Okay.
I'm stumbling into it, and gathered I'm only like, gosh, how far along into this thing am I? 4,000 words. Holy shit, I'm 4,000 words into this thing?
Oh wow, that's a decent chunk.
Especially since it's supposed to be 10,000 words, and I want another sex scene in there.
Shit.
So like, move
You
that fucking plot along.
They have to bone down right now.
Right now.
Like, you have zero time to like pad this out.
Well, I mean, there is the sex scene. There is the sex scene at the top, but I want to put another one at, in there as well. I got some ground to cover, guys.
Yeah, I mean, how are you gonna write a sex scene that's less than 5,000 words?
Get the fuck out of here.
I guess you're just gonna have to skip all the good stuff.
No! I mean, mine are typically 3,000 words, but I had more than 2,000. I had more than like 2,000 or 3,000 words of, oh gosh, it would only be 2,000. No, it'd be 3,000. No, it'd be 2,000. You know what, guys? You math for me. I'm not going to. But I had more plot planned, and now it's like, oh, I just really need to move this thing along.
Yeah. Weird how that happens.
I know, right? I'm like, crap, I need to like remove, I don't know, a bunch of this and like rearrange the way the plot was going to go. I was being very willy-nilly about it. There's no more time to
find their voice.
No more time. Just banging.
Yeah. Sorry, if they don't have identities yet, then it's not going to happen.
But his penis is going to go in her. My mom's going to hear this.
Honestly, sometimes I feel like that's what I'm writing. I'm like, oh no, their personalities haven't shown up yet. All right, we're done.
I'm really planning on their personalities coming through in the second draft. So.
Okay. overachiever.
I know. You just full stop, no personality.
Yep, no. It's good to go. First draft, never look back.
Okay, so tell me about descriptions.
Well,
how do you think abstractly?
In a way, it's kind of like procrastinating. Because I'm writing dialogue, and you can end up feeling the need to kind of write he said, she said, or some variation. Mm-hmm. She asked, he asked. The dialogue tags, essentially, every time someone says that. And like, it's good to like pull back from that and just have the dialogue by itself in some places.
Yeah.
You know, I find it like I get lost when you have a book that's just no dialogue tags or like very sparsely dialogue tags.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
it needs to be clear who's talking.
Passages like that. I have a lot of trouble allowing myself to do that because I think it looks so sparse. It looks just empty. Because like, that's the way I outline. I will write the dialogue, that just the back and forth. Mm-hmm. And that's a scene outline. And then I have to figure out everything else that needs to like happen while they're talking. And so then I spend the next writing portion of this just focusing on filling in the gaps between everything they're saying. And sometimes I overdo it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I overdo it. But a lot of it is like, well, something needs to go in between these things. So it's gonna be imagery.
But I like that though, because like then like the foundation is already set. Because I do typically find that like my description and imagery comes in edits.
Okay.
As I'm writing, it's so clear in my head. And then when I go and read it back, I'll realize like, oh, I'm missing all the picture I saw. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or like when you haven't read it in a while, and then you read it and you're like, I've forgotten what I was picturing, but something needs to be here now.
Yeah.
Like, it's very clear that there is no background.
Yeah.
In this scene.
A lot of times I won't have a picture in my head of the background, but I have like the vibe of their mood. I'll go back and read it and I'll be like, okay, we're past vibe. Like, we have to move into actual, like, where are they? What do they look like? Stuff like that. I don't know. Everything's just, I feel like it's been very list-like in my head. And I think it's partially because I've been listening to a lot of nonfiction, listening to and reading nonfiction. And so, like, my style is reflecting that. And so I just started listening to the new Leigh Bardugo novel, and her imagery is always really pretty, and it definitely inspires me. So I guess that's my number one like tip for like shifting into writing imagery, is reading people who do it in a way that you really admire.
Yeah, I also think like there's this idea that imagery needs to be big and flowery and, you know, extra poignant and like something like that. It needs to be more than just simply telling someone, hey, this is a room and it's got a lamp on the table. You know?
Well, my thing is,
you need to like maybe extra go into like all the details about the wood grain and the bleakness of the lamp. Like you don't need to do that unless it evokes something. Like, unless it's important.
Well, and it might be that I write in first person, but I don't believe there should be any imagery that my characters wouldn't notice.
Yeah,
themselves.
No, in first person that would be really weird to have. It's like,
yeah,
there was a dog behind me, but I didn't see it.
Well, and then it becomes like a challenge if you aren't switching POVs to like tell the reader what the main character looks like without them like looking in a mirror, right? So the only way, well, the most prominent way I have found to do this is through how they feel about a thing, right? You know, if they feel insecure about their hair, then using that feeling of insecurity to describe their hair.
Yeah. See, I also struggle with character description, but I'm also at a point where I just straight up do not describe a character, like the point of view character.
Yeah.
If I like, unless it like comes up where it's like, all right, now we have to examine this.
Yeah.
But
that is just, I feel like that's like my number one critique I get from people is like, what does the room look like and what does this person look like? And it's like, I don't know. Use your brain. I got you this far. Like, you do like, some of the heavy lifting, please.
Sometimes it comes to like, I'm reading a book and then it like the author describes a character, I guess a little too late from like, I've already imagined someone and like we're a couple chapters in now, and then they're like, all right, now I'm gonna tell you about them. And I was like, no, I had a vision and I don't
this does not line up. Yeah. I've also had like, particularly when I was younger and like an author would describe, you know, like the male lead having like a long hair, right? Like long wavy hair, and that's just not my bag at all. And so I would just like, nope, he's got a nice short haircut.
No.
What? It's a good look.
I would die.
I reject that.
Oh, I think it happens in When a Scot Ties the Knot. That she's like, and then he shaved his beard and he came in looking gorgeous, and I'm like, Duddy no.
We're gonna put that beard back on him.
Tear this page out, Tessa. I disagree.
I don't go for this. No.
Yeah, no, and I just, you know, I feel so betrayed when that happens. I hate that so much.
Yeah.
Like, no. So you tell me your character has short hair, I'm gonna be like, no, he doesn't.
Yeah. No, I went somewhere in my brain. Sorry.
You went somewhere in your brain. That's fine. See, you gave me a wonderful compliment saying you like my description so much, and the first thing that popped into my head was that this line I wrote in my current thing. And so this is subject to change, but currently the monster is a gargoyle. And so I wrote that like he's like giving her a handshake because they're meeting. They're introducing themselves, and she holds his hand and she's like, my hand is so tiny in his, but instead of being like, oh look, my hand's so tiny and his big monster hand. Which is something I would do. Like, not dunking on that. I do.
Don't worry. That might happen someday.
But like, I need new ways to say that. I think I wrote something about how she felt suddenly like a pigeon for the first time in her life, perching on a skyscraper.
I remember
and then
that.
You said like something about, oh, and it never goes too abstract, and I'm like, oh no, that's the most abstract thing I've ever written.
But it's so pretty, and it is so applicable because gargoyles are on the top of fucking skyscrapers and pigeons perch on them. Tell me that wasn't on accident.
I like it. But no, that was on purpose.
But okay, but like, it's
also
perfection.
The most insane thing I've ever like it's so weird sounding, and she's like, the pigeon that is now my heart is cooing, and I'm like, I can't keep going with the pigeon thing.
But I loved it. like when you were reading that, I was like just silently gushing over those words. If they're too much for somebody, I don't want to talk to that person. Like, you are a joyless human that doesn't understand art. Like, I love it.
I like it too, but like, I like it in the way that it's like, I'm just entertaining myself. And I don't think it actually has any like literary merit.
I disagree.
So I don't know that.
Do you feel like it goes into purple prose or something? What would give it literary merit to you?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't think anything I write has literary merit. Hey, what part of your monster fucking books are
Okay, but like I think this is part of us like reclaiming what has merit. Is us being like, my monster fucking book does have fucking merit. Okay, Chad? Like, you can go fuck yourself about it. You know, like, that is part of it to me, is like owning that, yes, this is about monsters fucking, and I wrote it so fucking beautifully, right? Like, that's part of it to me, is like, I do think it has literary merit, and I do absolutely love it. And
okay,
I don't think your talent is wasted writing monster fucking. Does that make sense?
I don't think it is. I just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like I don't have anything that I can say about it that is. I don't have anything like I can say, here's how you do something like this. Here's how you solve a problem when you're struggling. Besides, write something weird and batshit, and it'll probably be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I just need to accept, like, writing this in the direction I'm writing it now. And
it might feel a little goofy.
Yeah. And, like, I think it feels goofy because I'm just, like, getting the plot down. Right? Like, but, like, I just feel like this is a really intensive first draft that's mostly essentially an outline, and then it's just going to have to get messed with. But yeah.
I getcha.
Right?
All right. So tell me about distinctive voices.
Distinctive voices. Okay, so this goes back to everything is through the eye of who is talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are their hobbies? What is their upbringing? How much gumption they have, how, like, shy they are, how, like, insecure they are about a certain topic, stuff like that, right?
Okay.
Because I think that is a big part of the way everybody talks, right? But then also we communicate so much more in silences than we do in dialogue necessarily. So, like, what characters use more silence to communicate than others, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's this character in Ted Lasso, Roy Kent. He communicates half of his dialogue in fucking grunts, right? But everyone, it fits perfectly for this character, and everyone knows what like he is conveying, right? And I think that's a really, like, great example of, like, particular voice for that character. But if you have a super outgoing guy communicating in grunts, like, that's weird. Right? Like, that wouldn't line up for that character, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I get you. Like, it's definitely between those two things. But so then you have your character who's, like, super outgoing. And you need to distinguish him between another character that's super outgoing.
Yeah.
How are they different?
How would I do that?
You're not using a lot of silences then for either of them.
Absolutely. Okay, so how I would do that is, like, how are they outgoing, right? Is one of them, like, super arrogant, and so they're going to communicate in a way that all of their ideas are right without question, and knowing that everyone else will agree with them. Okay, let's say that that's one character, right? That's super outgoing. And then we have another character that's super outgoing, but, comes from like, more of a modest background, right? So they're super outgoing, they're super friendly, but they're going to communicate in more of an encouragement sort of way. Does that make sense? Where it kind of brings everybody to the table, and it's less like I'm talking at you.
All right, I can see that.
Yeah. So that's how I would have these two people communicating, right? So we'd have outgoing and arrogant, essentially prepared to, like, give a lecture, and then we have, like, more of a friendly sort of, like, outgoing. And then if we're talking about two characters that are both, like, sort of friendly, outgoing, like, where do they come from? Like, what is their gender? Like, are they outgoing and also high energy, or is one of them more of an outgoing and low energy? Like, there are still, like, different places for these characters to be individual while still having this personal trait in common. And then a lot of times when I'm writing, I'll have, like, a person's energy in mind from, like, either another movie or another book or someone I know, and I just kind of, like, put that energy into what they say and how they see things. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, no, I get that. I feel like it's such a difficult thing to pull off, is having characters say things like just the way they talk is different without making it like a I don't even know how to describe it. Like without making it like kind of a caricature of like a person.
Yeah.
Not even a caricature, just like okay, I have a character who's very kind of bubbly, and so do you make her like all the way Elle Woods, or like do you like what are you gonna do with that? Like, well, you don't need to give me an example if you don't want to.
But like it just depends on like, are they bubbly and high energy, or are they only like bubbly around certain people, right? Because like I have a friend who's super bubbly and goofy around me. Most people that know her like think that she is just like a very quiet, stoic person who's always chill, right? And so like it really just depends on like that character in what setting too, right? And that's what my favorite things is, when you see some like a character depicted one way and then you see them in a different setting where they're very comfortable. This is a great example is Mr. Darcy, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like what a transformative person he becomes. Transformed person? Yeah. He becomes just by getting into a setting around people he's very comfortable with. Like even after falling flat on his face and being called the fuck out, he gets in his home around like his sister and he has so much grace. Right?
Yeah, like he becomes a much different person. It's like when he's not. No, you definitely. It definitely took me like 100 watches of Pride and Prejudice to get this. I feel like, but it definitely stood out when someone pointed it out to me.
It was like something that, I didn't see it outright. It was like a intuitive thing that it worked for me, but I didn't understand why. Yeah, I don't know, man. What do you know?
No, I get you. I feel like the thing I've been trying lately that's been, I don't even know. I don't want to like be like, this is what's working for me, because I don't even want to say it's working. Who knows if it is.
This is what feels good to me. How about that?
This is what I'm doing lately that, I like. I have character, like, I try to kind of create like a core tenet of a character's personality. Like obviously they don't have to stick to it, not even stick to it. I don't want to like everything they ever say is going to be nailing this emotion or this characterization, because I feel like then it's going to be overwhelming.
Absolutely.
But like I do try to center a character on like especially for small projects, because my projects have been relatively small lately. But I think I did this even with my kind of longer projects, that there is like one main thing that really sticks out about them. And so like for Lily, I tried to make her, she's got this, she's good at her job, she's competent, she's bubbly, she was very Elle Woods.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then when I did Janice, it was like she's very tired and it's like a little bit stressed always. And that's just who she is. And because I wanted to make her like as different from Lily as I could. But so now I'm like, and the third character, I'm like, well, I can't swing back around to competent and bubbly. Not that these things are opposites necessarily, but I do feel like they're very distinguishable from one another.
Okay, yeah. So, the bubbly thing, I think, also has to do with, like, how jaded they are, too. Right? Like, you can be, like, a high-energy, fun person, but also, like, super snarky. And Definitely. So I think those, it really just depends on, like, the specifics of the character, right? So if you were to swing to bubbly, there could still be a skepticism that would distinguish between, that person and Lily.
Yeah, all right. I dig it.
Also, like, jaded and skepticism really can be something that adapts in one way or the other. Because I know people that, like, they were very, like skeptical as kids and then did quite a bit of unpacking, and now they're not nearly as skeptical, right?
Okay, interesting.
Or, you know, more in my direction where I wasn't skeptical at all and had nothing but trust for everybody, and now I am definitely more skeptical.
You say that, but like
I blame myself for being naive constantly.
Yeah, I know. Like, yes, earlier this week you're like, oh, I messed up because I just trusted everyone.
I know.
Like, no, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It all like boils down to like my concern. I hate ever feeling incompetent.
Yeah, no, and I get that.
Yeah, and so like moments where I am too trusting sometimes can feel like I was thoughtless, and that's a level of incompetence. And it makes me really uncomfortable. So I think also a great way to play around with dialogue is also like the pitch of people's voices. Right? Like, do they have like this deep voice that no matter where they're at in a room, you can hear them? Or like, do they have a voice that just blends in? You have to really work to hear them. And like, you know, like, I think that that's a really interesting way to like character people as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely love describing voices. I feel like I end up doing that constantly.
Yeah, I haven't done that with this book yet. But like, again, I'm just getting it written and going from there. So I mean, looking at the word count though, I'm like, crap, I really do have to like mess around with how long this thing is, because it's too long. But I think I can just steal like this scene and put it, because this is a prequel for a book that's coming out after this comes out, obviously.
Okay.
And so I think I can just steal it and put it into the actual book. Just change, like, you know, emotions attached to everything. Yeah, that would be really good. Okay, I'm sorry. I got really excited. These scenes still exist and it's not empty writing. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I feel like that was a pretty good talk. Do you feel like there's anything else you want to add on either front?
I mean, just with like description, just remember that there's 5 senses.
Yeah.
And who's coming up with it, you know?
Yeah. So, no, I get that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another thought that it's kind of just it is a little bigger than description.
Okay.
But I feel like it ends up helping it a little bit. It was the idea that you shouldn't write a scene in the same place more than once unless something's like really changed about it. Like, obviously it's not a hard and fast rule. You can have a scene in the same place, but I guess think it's definitely like, where's your confusion?
I mean, particularly in like small town romance, going back to the same location is like part of the genre, right? Like having a specific hangout is part of the genre. And so,
is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so then, like, I mean, for the series, I can see going back to places a lot, but I think if you find your characters in the same place over and over again, it can really feel like it can, I don't know, make the story kind of seem a little monotonous. Like, it's just something else that helps break up and add variety if you try to move your scenes in more locations.
I can see that. Like, you can't have well, you can, but you'd have to really be creative about what details you brought in what scene. Right? Like if you were to be in a room and they're falling in love and there's quite a bit of light coming through the window, right? And it's
like, are you going to describe that light every single time?
Or then they're in the room now at the breakup and there's light coming through the window, but they realize there's a break in the glass. And so, like, instead of focusing on the light, now you're focusing on, you know, the shatter of the glass, you know. and how it's broken and it won't be fixed and like all this stuff, right? And so I think that that's really like, that would be the message I would take from that is, yes, a variety of places is a pretty great way for when they, like, we're all building a world and everything.
And like everything is part of the set. Like you can really work a location into you know, creating more feeling or more emotion in a scene. Like it can, like it is, the set is a character.
Yeah. I love that.
A lot of ways.
I love the idea of like looking at your books a bit more like a camera lens. Like the idea of like, like directors, they know everything that's in the shot.
You would hope.
And so you would hope. A really good director knows everything that's in the shot.
I'm the wrong person to have this conversation with, because like you said that, I'm like, oh no, that's something that's like one of my peeves.
Well, they should know everything that's in the shot, right? They should know what's in frame. And so I think that's a really interesting way to look at like the scene you're setting up and like what the set is. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it that I have never looked at it until you just said this. Like I've always put myself like in the seat. And so like, what am I doing with my hands? Is there condensation on the table? How do I feel about it? Like, am I a sensory person that is like, I don't like that, I need to wipe it up? You know, like I'm in the chair, but if I'm thinking more omniscient, then like I'm watching the scene play out.
Which is definitely like, I guess like a third person kind of thing that you really want to focus on, or not third person, but like that kind of omniscient.
But like, I think it still applies with first person. Like, yes, I'm in the chair, but like, what am I seeing of everything in front of me? Like, what are the details I'm picking up? Is
also,
it like
that's definitely the benefit of fiction, is that not everything has to be 100% realistic, and you can bend the scenery to you know, be dramatic. That's why it's like always raining in movies during the most dramatic scenes.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that's something I think that's why I need to get some different genre fiction that I'm like reading for a little while, because I'm thinking too literally, right? So when I go to write, there's no bending the scene. I'm like, there's no way he could see that because it's around the corner. But like, I mean, get rid of the fucking corner. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, no,
no one else is drawing this picture. So like, I can
definitely
do whatever
the kind
I want.
Of thing you can write yourself into like a jam if you like, oh no, but here's all the pieces, and it's like, well, you have full capability of moving the pieces.
Absolutely.
And rearranging things and what's going to be a better way. And God, there's like, the only thing I would say that is like, there's this series of books that I love, and even though I love them for this reason, I would not recommend.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's such a, if everything I read, even if like every third thing I read, or even like just 2 other books did this, I feel like I'd be like, not about it.
Okay.
So the series it's from like the 80s or 70s or something. Clan of the Cave Bear.
Okay, so funny you brought this up because I had a friend literally today, like we were kind of going through like memory lane of the like books that we read when we were in our youths, and she mentioned that one. I'm like, it's hilarious you bring that up. Like, and so like hearing it literally today.
So you read when you're younger.
Yeah.
Like,
well, she was like in high school. She was in high school, and it was also, the series was in her high school library.
Oh, okay.
But she went to school in Canada, so slightly different than, you know, my experience here in the Bible Belt.
Dang, that's kind of an R-rated book.
I know, that was what she said. Now, gathered, I feel like there was quite a bit of Stephen King in my school library.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And there was definitely some racier stuff there. Anyway, I think I had really good librarians.
But so like the thing I enjoy most about these books is that it feels a lot like sitting in on and anthropology lesson in like a college level course, because like you know, she's just constantly going over every little detail about what makes like the ways that civilization is forming within these prehistoric peoples, you know, like within the small connections between them, the things they've already established, the way that they are intimately like acquainted with the land that they live on, and like all the plants, all the animals, and then like you feel like you're getting a little geography lesson, and then like a little like it just got everything. And it's just, it feels like this story is more of just a framing device to like be taught all these things. Does that make sense? I feel like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it took me a second to like kind of align the words, but that does make sense.
You know, like I feel like the story really takes a back seat, or that it's only set up there and the events only happen to be like, and here we're moving on to this unit where we're going to talk about these things.
That's hilarious.
You know, like when you, I didn't take Latin, but like, I bet a bunch of my friends in high school took Latin, and their textbook followed like the same few characters, and it would just keep talking about like these three guys in Rome, and like, you know, all their little squabbles, and that like everything they learned in the language in Latin, it would be like, and now this guy stabbed that guy, or he thinks he's a bitch, like little things like that. But like, in order to advance the story, like it's like, now we have to learn 5 new words and 3 verb tenses.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's hilarious.
I don't know, like I love these books for that, but like it's also like, that's such a particular thing that I don't recommend to be used, because like when you are reading, this is something I feel like I've seen everybody complain about, like you'll read a historical book and then like it's like, all right, now we're going to take this chapter for the author to info dump on you everything they researched about cross stitching in the 1900s or whatever, you know, like that's not even like a great thing. Whaling in the 1700s. That's something I could talk about for hours.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So
it does feel like you're like, all right, let's pause the story just to like learn about this now. And I forgot what I was talking about.
That is the way you felt about her writing, or you felt like she didn't do that?
No, it's just like, I feel like if you do try to emulate that aspect of her writing, you will end up sounding like that. Very likely.
Okay.
Like, not like I don't do it. Like, I'm sure somebody could pull it off, but like, at large, I feel like that's not really what people are looking for in a book, and it does feel like it stops the story entirely.
Well, because like, okay, so I'm reading The Wisteria Society by India Holton, which
how is that?
Kate, read this book. It is bonkers. It is such a fucking delight. But she has this great like weaving of actual like concepts of civilization from Regency times with this alter reality where women are like lady pirates that can cast spells on houses and fly them all over the place. It is so absolutely bonkers. When I was like reading it, like the first couple the first chapter, I was like, I clearly messed something up. They aren't flying a house. And so I reread it. I'm like, no, I gotta reread that again. It took me like 3 rereads to be like, okay, they're flying a house. Like, that's what's happening right now. And so like I can't remember what made me think about this. But anyway, you should read it. It's really fun.
Okay, I shall.
But that is like a great example of a very particular voice that like isn't gonna work for everything, but it really works. Like the way her voice works in this near fantasy alter reality like skates the in between of like ridiculous and relatable. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's
no,
really
I get
cool.
that. I really love a sort of dry voice, kind of almost boring
Yeah.
voice when
It's-
talking about like an absolutely bonkers, ridiculous
Yes.
setting.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
that is what I love so much about The Princess Bride. If you ever read it, like,
Oh,
the
I
movie's
love
good.
The Princess
movie's
Bride.
amazing,
Yeah.
but the book is so good.
I only read about half of it.
Mm.
And honestly, I didn't get into it very much, which was disappointing because I really wanted to. And then but like, it was just like one of those things that like, this is too close to the movie. And so I know everything that's going to happen. And then when I'm reading something that I've already seen the movie and there's direct lines pulled from it, I get too thrown out. So I have to read the book before seeing the movie, typically.
I get that.
Yeah.
There is like one point, because like there are moments in the book that it's like, this isn't in the movie, and they kind of surprise you with how off the wall they are. Like, God, there was this line that'll never leave my consciousness, because they're like, this is before Europe was invented, but it's after soup was invented. But stew wasn't around yet, so like, don't even like that's what it's talking about, and you're just like, I'm so lost. Thank you.
I could not follow this line, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's like, all right, I couldn't wrap my head around this.
So, do you want to give a piece of writing advice?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel qualified.
My only piece of writing advice is one I've already given, like, in this. If you feel like you're stuck, go read somebody that you admire.
That's always good. I feel like that's always so good.
Yeah, it is so helpful.
I want to say, know how long the thing, like, obviously not everything you're gonna have like an exact word count.
This is a good piece of advice I wish I had taken earlier.
No, like, because you were talking about, oh, I'm halfway through this story somehow, and oh my God, I'm almost at 10,000 words, and I need to pick up the pace. But like, I had a moment like that yesterday, not quite like that, but like similar, like realizing, oh, I'm at 15,000 words, and I only planned this to be 30,000 words, and the first time around that I did this, and I also planned it to be 30,000 words, I ended up overshooting by 5,000. And, you know, like, okay, so time to start wrapping shit up. Okay, cool, got it. Which is, like, a good feeling. I felt, like, so much stress that I was like, this book is never gonna get done.
Gosh,
and then
what a mood.
It was so nice to be like, actually, it's gonna be over with before I know it.
That's awesome.
And so I think there is some, actually, no, I don't. I'm going to scratch that thought. I don't see the benefit in not knowing how long your book is going to be, because it's so good for pacing, especially, and like gauging what kind of energy each scene needs and all that. I think you can only go improve by knowing exactly like what kind of word count you want to hit, and knowing where you like, it really helps.
I agree.
And perhaps there is a benefit to not knowing, but like, I don't see it.
I'm sure there is a benefit, because like, that's just kind of the way everything is. But yeah, right now I'm not feeling creative enough to be able to tell you what that would be. Right?
No, I feel like I don't even think, like, I think there's such a, I don't know, I don't like when things go on and on. See, okay, I'm gonna like go into like a little side thing. There's a so let me gather my thoughts. So I know you probably don't read manga or manga or whatever.
Not typically. Not ever in my life have I read a manga. So
not to sound like a weeb, but like, I did.
Well, not to sound like a freaking snob. That's fair.
And so there's all these series of like really popular mangas that have like 300 or so books, installments.
Yes.
I guess you can call them. And the thing is, so people often refer to these massive series by like what arcs are going on, like what story arcs are happening. Be like, maybe the first 50 books is like this like kind of personal arc, and then the next 50 or 25 books is this other character gets a really strong plot arc, and then like, and it, the thing with these series that are so very long with no end in sight end up kind of frustrating me when I read them, because it doesn't feel like you said you don't read them. So like, what is the truth?
No. Okay. No, but like my issue with like stories that are really serialized, right?
Okay.
So like even TV shows that's like, you guys
TV shows definitely have this problem.
Yes. So like when I go to read like a series, I'm very big on like, how many books is this? Because if we're getting into like 20 books, no, motherfucker, your story was done. Your story was done 15 books ago. Like, you are not the story for me. I need an end in sight. I need an arc in front of me.
Feel like the natural pacing of an arc, and like when they can feel when it's run out or when it's held on too long, and it gets annoying, it gets draining, and then you're just like, you lose interest.
Okay.
And the only people left are like the diehard fans, and that's not the majority of your readers or consumers or whatever.
And I think that this is something you and I have talked about before, where you were like, there can only be one almost kiss in a book. I fought you on this, but then it happened to me in another book where I was reading it and there was 2 almost kisses. I'm like, that's one too many almost kisses. Like, it just,
it's like, you just showed me this trick. You can't do it twice.
It wasn't 2, it was 3.
Oh my god.
I know.
Jail. Right in jail.
Right in jail. There's no tension here. I know they're not going to. You have already given me the pattern, and I've seen it broken twice. Right?
There's this book that I love everything else about it, but the sex scene, they get interrupted like 2 or 3 times before like they actually get down and do it. Like they start their foreplay and all that, and then they get interrupted by like this chick's cat, and then they get interrupted by like the sound of someone knocking on the door. Like it just keeps happening, and it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna skip to the next chapter because I want this to be over. You've lost me.
Absolutely.
And it makes me so mad to like okay, if it happened once and kind of like illustrated the characters are kind of feeling nervous and that really spooked them and they need to like really reassure themselves. Like, if you want to use a thing for character development or an emotional moment, good. But like, you cannot keep playing the same note.
Yeah. Well, and like, that's what I think happens in like TV shows that go too long, is like, you've already shown me this trick. I've already seen this plot. I've already seen this character have growth, and then you backtracked them because you were running out of tension. Right? And so,
like, a really great example is like Supernatural.
Oh, I never watched it.
Oh no? Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a running joke that like Sam and Dean keep dying and bringing each other back from the dead.
Okay.
Because it happens at least 4 times for each of them. And
you know
it's nuts.
Really funny is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It happens like 3 times, right? That she dies. But every time it worked. Like, I want to tell you, so, like, it was you really wrong, have to like they really made it work.
The dramatic tension and the believability of like, well, we've already brought her back from death twice. How on earth are we going to do it the 3rd time? You know, like at this point, like at a certain point, it's like, I just know you're going to do it, so like, crap, and skip to the good part.
Yeah. I was thinking of How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, I've never seen that. I know a lot of people were like really upset with how it ended.
Very much so. But like, really, like, it ran its course. It ran its course seasons before it actually ended. I hate when shows do that. Like,
yeah, no, because like, I get that everyone here is collecting a paycheck and that they rely on this to like keep going for the money, but it's, the story has petered out, and it's like, I wish you guys would just make like a spin-off series, like end the story, start a new story.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's one of those things that like kind of the reverse problem with like a lot of Netflix shows is that they know that they're going to cancel it 2 or 3 seasons in because that's when a new show stops bringing in, you know, an optimum level of subscribers. So they know they cancel their breadwinner shows 3 seasons in.
Yeah. The fact that Santa Clarita Diet didn't at least get a movie.
Yeah. But like, if you know that this is your time limit, you should write your story to fit within 3 seasons instead of feeling like you're leaving people hanging, you know?
Yes. I think because Santa Clarita Diet, for one thing, they should have at least gotten a movie to tie up the plot. Right?
My dad's watching that.
That was such a solid freaking show. It was awesome. And then they ended on a cliffhanger, and we've never gotten any resolution. And I know that they did the cliffhanger because they're like, we have these great big names, you know, like, let's end on a cliffhanger so that there's outcry from the viewership. And Netflix was still like, no, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, no, I feel like we're at a point with Netflix, like, just to continue diverging from the problem.
Yeah.
From the topic. We're like, there is no amount of outcry from fans that's going to bring a show back from the dead. Like there is with some other shows that do get picked up.
Well, and Netflix has embraced more than 3 seasons, you know, in the past, like, 3 years. Right? Yeah. Like, we see it with, like, Stranger Things and stuff like that. But it really, like, is still a pretty unique situation. So I think that it's great that, like you said, like, I want an ending. Right? So, like, 3 seasons really seems like a decent amount for a show. But if you're still having solid story, I want more. Right? So, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard.
No, I get, like, the wanting to have more. I just, like, you should know the size of your story when you're starting or when you're outlining.
That's great advice. Mm-hmm.
Like, I get starting with a place where you know that you're not even going to... You know so little about your story that it's like, how can I possibly know the size of it? Well, like, just give yourself an arbitrary number. Mm-hmm. And then once you hit, like, maybe, I don't know, a half of that or even a quarter of that, ask yourself, has the tension been building at a rate that's going to hit a certain, like, level of, like, appropriate to the genre, appropriate to the characters and the emotional arcs you're setting up, like, how much longer is it going to take to hit that? And
Andrew has asked me this question before too, like, how do you know how long something's going to be? And part of it is, like, I've done this before now, and I've worked in a couple different lengths, and so I have a better understanding of, like, how to make a story arc within this length, right? So part of it is that, but also, like, where, like, how many scene changes are you having, right? Because if it's 10,000 words, I suggest only 2 scene changes, right? Like one scene and then another scene, like one location, another location, because now there's, every time you describe that space that they're in, now you need to use words that need to propel the plot. And so all of those words need to pack multiple punches because this is how big the spaces that you're writing within, right? So how many characters can you include in those 10,000 words? And how obviously
you're not going to have a dozen characters in
absolutely
10,000 words. That's just too much.
Absolutely. And then, like, how many if you do introduce another character or you bring in a character from a book, like if you're writing within the same world and you're writing, you know, a short story within that world and you want to bring in this character, how do you do that very quickly that makes that moment stand out, and you can justify using those words for that moment? Because, you know, based on the length of the story, you really need to be paying attention to you have a word shortage, so, like, word economics go up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've definitely talked about this before, but it's just like also just that you, as a person who exists in the world and not living entirely under a rock, mean, you're listening to this podcast, so like great reception down there if you are. But you've read stories, you've consumed stories, you've witnessed media of varying lengths, and like if you watch Lord of the Rings, you know what a 9-hour 3-movie series feels like. All right, that's a fantasy epic right there. If you've read Lord of the Rings, then you know what it's like to read a book that long and what the pacing feels like. And obviously, you just reading one book isn't gonna give you a comprehensive feeling, but like you are media literate by consuming media over the years, over your entire life, and you do have a feel for like pacing and just the size of a story to begin with. And like you already have that talent. You just gotta like exercise that muscle.
Well, and I think it's really important to know specifically how you digest, right? Yes. Like I tend to be a pretty intuitive person when it comes to digesting stuff, right? I don't typically know why I know something until I sit and ask myself that question, like, how do I know this? If you are somebody who does a lot of research, then do your research. Bring in multiple things within the size that you're writing in and read a bunch of it. You know, just know how you learn and lean into that. Yeah.
And like, God, this was like a thing that just was like my biggest pet peeve in school. Because like I was a film major, I had all these other film majors around me. And whenever someone would be like, all right, this is my project. And then it's like they've written 30 pages of script, and it's like, this is a 1-semester class, and we're only spending like 2 weeks on this particular film assignment. What do you think is getting done?
Yeah. How many? Because it's like a page per minute is like typical, right?
Yep. And so it's like, know what, you know. No. Like, I don't know. But know the numbers. Know your logistics and what's possible, and like
know the box you're dancing in. Yep. How big's the box, friend? You got an arena, then let those arms fly. Okay. So Kate, do you want to tell them where you're at?
I'm by Kate Pryor on all the socials. Just, you know, pick a social, look me up there. If I'm not there, then you should make an account for me. And let me know you were looking for me there. That's how I'm spreading. That's how I'm getting the word out now. We're not.
You tell me where I'm at.
You tell me where I should be. Just start tagging me in like random places where I don't exist. We also have a website, kate-pryor.com, and that's where most important news is happening. You know, I haven't put any updates on anything lately just because I'm, you know,
writing.
Not doing anything exciting yet, but I will be.
So I am Marty the author on Instagram and TikTok. But yeah, the best place to figure out what's going on with me is through my newsletter. I just caught I caught my speech slowing down, and I was like, okay, why am I slowing down? And went for it. Anyway, you can do a joining up thing on the pop-up at martyv.com. And yeah, Kate, thanks for talking.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging.
Yeah. Listener, go do your best, friend. You're doing great.
We believe in you.
We believe in you. Bye, listener. Bye.
Bye.